Okay, chapter 9, section 3, The Rise of Napoleon. As you can see, I am doing my review video on location on duty. So let's talk about Napoleon's early life. Napoleon was born on the island of Corsica. You can see Corsica right there. It's just off the coast of Italy. It was actually an Italian possession up until 2 months before Napoleon was born. Once Napoleon was born, he was a French citizen, and that enabled him to win a scholarship that you can see down there under A2. Napoleon's family was not wealthy. His father was a lawyer, but the lawyers in Corsica did not make a whole lot of money, and he was considered relatively poor by French standards. At the military school, Napoleon was able to complete his studies, and like most military installations, he achieves the rank of lieutenant upon graduation. Most of the officers at the military academy did not like Napoleon because he spoke with an Italian accent and he was relatively poor compared to them. All right, so once graduating from the military academy, Napoleon will rise quickly through the ranks. He will become captain and then ultimately brigadier general. He's given control over the Italian army, where he leads that ambitious attack into Italy and surprises the Italians when he crosses the Alps, which was the picture on the opening slide. He returns to France as a hero, and the Committee of Public Safety will put him in charge of the French troops that was going to invade Great Britain. But once he starts to train the troops, he realizes that this is not going to be possible due to the fact that the French troops were not up to the task. So he proposes an indirect attack on Great Britain, and that would be through Egypt. Egypt was one of Great Britain's most important colonies, and if they could defeat them, then that would greatly diminish the power of the British crown. So once he gets to Egypt, the British Navy will destroy the French Navy in a battle, which leaves his troops completely cut off from France, and he sees certain defeat ahead of him. So he actually will go back to Paris, leaving his troops to fend for themselves, and they are captured. When he comes back to France, that's when they ask him to take part in the coup d'etat that you see here. That's 1799. He took part in the coup d'etat. He became the first consul of the new government, the consulate. 2 years later, he said he was going to be consul for life, and then 2 years after that, he was Emperor Napoleon I. Now we're going to talk about some of the good and negative things that Napoleon did as leader of France. The first thing that he did that was great was he made peace with the Catholic Church. Napoleon, remember, was an atheist. He considered religion a social convenience at best, but he realized that the majority of the people of France were Catholic, and they wanted to practice Catholicism again. Catholicism had been outlawed since the de-Christianization phase of the French Revolution. Napoleon and the Pope will come to an agreement to allow Catholicism back into France, but the deal was that the Pope could never ask for the lands stolen from the Catholic Church as a result of the de-Christianization phase. The codification of the laws. During the early stages of Napoleon's reign, there were nearly 300 different legal systems in France. He was able to whittle this down to 7, which makes it much easier for someone to understand the laws depending upon the locations you are in. So another good thing. One of the negative things you can see down here at the bottom is the fact that it was a step back for women. Women were actually considered almost second-class citizens compared to men. It made it more difficult to get a divorce, and the women's word was that of a child. A man's word was taken more seriously than that of a woman, so negative on that one. The next thing that Napoleon did is a good thing, and it was basically promotion in Napoleon's bureaucracy was based upon one thing: your ability. It wasn't based on who your dad was or how much money he had or what your last name was. It was based on the best person for the job would ultimately get the job. Negative thing down here at the bottom is that he was a product of censorship. He shut down all but 13 newspapers in France and started to ban books unless it aligned with his ideas in France. And you can see there were 73 newspapers at the beginning of the revolution. All but 13 were shut down. And down there at the bottom, you can see that he even insisted that people would read the mail to make sure there were no government conspiracies against his government. Germain de Stael was just one of the writers, the son of Jock Necker, as you can see there. It's not really that big of a deal. You might want to know this: New England clam chowder. Napoleon's Empire. So, Napoleon, when he comes to power, he needs a timeout. The Committee of Public Safety Wars were still raging, and in order to get his footing, he asked for a timeout. So for a 4-year time period, he seeks a pause in the war, and he starts to train his troops for the wars against Europe. And in 1803, the war started again, and he was easily able to defeat the armies of the Austrians, the Prussians, and the Russians, as you can see down at the bottom. And once he does this, he has this Grand Empire in place. There's 3 parts of his Grand Empire. The first part is the French Empire itself, which is I call it a French Empire on steroids. The next part is the dependent states, and these are countries in which Napoleon put his family members in charge of. One of the great examples that I used in class was Spain. The third part was the Allied states. Those are states that we mentioned down here at the bottom: Austrian, Prussian, and Russia. Those 3 countries would be Allied states. So these are states that he defeated in battle and he forced to join his Grand Empire. New England clam chowder. So within his empire, Napoleon tries to spread the ideas of the Enlightenment, which will upset many people that we'll see in the next couple slides. Skip all the way down to 1A down there. The 2 reasons why Napoleon's Grand Empire will end so quickly is Britain's ability to survive and remain independent of French control, and the rise of nationalism or pride in one's country. So we're going to spend the next couple slides talking about this rise in nationalism. So Napoleon is trying to take over Great Britain once again. And in order to do this, like we discussed on a couple of slides ago, you need to have a strong navy. He begins this phase of building up his navy, but the British find out about this, and they send in their navy to act and try to destroy the navy. And they're successful just off the coast of Spain, as you can see there in the diagram, at Trafalgar. At Trafalgar, the British are able to secure a resounding victory, which depletes the French Navy, and Napoleon realizes that he will not be able to successfully invade Great Britain. So he has to make alternative plans, and this is where the Continental System comes into play. The Continental System was a way for the French to try to destroy the British economy by preventing them from trading or selling their supplies to any of the countries in Europe that were located within the Continental System, or were, to put it in other ways, who were Allied states or dependent states. The Continental System will fail because of nationalism, like we said on the last slide. The pride in one's country, or countries wanting to step up and say, "How dare you, Napoleon, to tell us who we can and cannot trade with," will be a major obstacle for them. And then this is just basically more information about why nationalism was so important. These countries are not going to want to sit here and listen to a Frenchman who's located 1,700 miles away from them telling them what they can and cannot buy. So they just choose to do it anyway. And then it's at this point that Napoleon has a huge issue on his hands. Will he let someone like Russia go ahead and challenge the Continental System, or is he going to actually step up to the plate and do something about it? Because remember, if he doesn't do anything about it, he's going to have a huge issue on his hands, and that is Austria and Prussia is not going to follow the rules either. So he has to step up and do something, which is going to be a major issue in the next section. Okay, that is it for the PowerPoint. I hope you learned something from my review. You have a quiz coming soon. There's also bonus points linked. Well, there may be bonus points linked to my website. Check it out and have a good day.